Welcome. It's another edition of Coffee with the Goose. Yes, I'm the Goose. So glad you joined me again. Yeah, it's been a little break, but we had a death in the family, and that's really going to be the main focus of our program today. Before we get going, though, let's start the way we always have, and we always will. Got to have our coffee. My coffee, very strong, as you know, just like my opinion. Got some creamer in there to make it sweet, just like me. All right. Today we're going to talk about fatherhood. Why? Well, I'm a dad, and I know many of you are. We all have a dad, for better or for worse. My dad passed away a couple of weeks ago. And, it's death of a family member or loved one. It's tough. It doesn't matter how old, how young they are, what your relationship is with them, whether it's lukewarm or very strong. It's very difficult to let go. My dad was 92 years old, a great guy. Even though he lived to a ripe old age, the best compliment I can give him is I was still afraid of him. You know what I mean? A good dad is respected by his kids, and respect, a little tiny part of respect is fear. No one's going to respect you if you let them just walk all over you, right? Okay. I'll tell you a little bit about my dad, and then we'll talk about fatherhood, how important it is, and what it takes to be a great dad. I don't claim to be the perfect dad, now, mind you. My dad, again, was 92 years old. He was a real pioneer in the computer industry. He was a genius. He really was. There's no question about it. Back in the 1960s and early 70s, we moved around a lot, and he worked for several computer operations, including Honeywell, and actually did some of the work on some NASA flights back in the mid to late 60s. So he was a real driving force in the computer business. And I obviously was with moving around and him working all the time, we didn't see much of him. And then finally, when I was like 10 years old, we moved back to his hometown, and I grew up there. And he owned a small business there, he and my mom. He was very strong and very sociable. He had a lot of wonderful strengths. And again, he wasn't perfect, and none of us are. His strengths were he was extremely sociable, extremely smart, very loyal, and full of laughter and joy. I'll talk a little bit about his funeral and his burial, because that kind of lets you know how important he was, what an amazing human being he was to me, and I'm sure other people in the church. We had a funeral in a Catholic church, the same church where his parents were married. He was married. He and my mom and me and Raquel were married. It was a beautiful, beautiful experience. I was fortunate enough to deliver the eulogy. And it was a very special experience because we saw two of our family members who had long been at odds finally come together and make peace. And it was that's what really brought tears to my eyes, is seeing that reconciliation, if you will. Then the next day we laid him to rest. And here's where, again, it got very personal for me. Normally, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but the flag, he was a veteran, a Navy veteran, and I arranged for the American Legion to come out with an honor guard and fire a few rounds and pay him homage. In that case, the flag would go to the eldest son, traditionally, okay? My two oldest siblings had another dad, so it didn't go to them. So my big brother turned to me and said, "No, you get it. You're the veteran." I'm like, wow, I'm honored, And it was a very special, very emotional experience. Again, seeing Dad laid to rest, as my mom was more than 20 years ago. See, he was, in my opinion, to me, the perfect dad. What does it take to be a perfect dad? That's the question. Okay, and I'm going to give you the answer. It's very simple. Okay. There are several things. It's a little list I've compiled, and I've came up with this list through experience, dealing with my kids, my wife and kids, my dad, and I did a little research on what it takes to be a perfect dad, okay? Number one, and this is the most important thing, the most important part of being a perfect dad is being there, okay? Unfortunately, with the world we live in today and in the United States, the number of broken families is it's the majority of families don't have a dad in the house. It's a shame. You want to be a perfect dad, be there. Don't skip out when times get tough. Don't be selfish. Don't be childish and leave your family, your wife and kids, because it only results in bad vibes and bad results. So the first thing you want to do is be there. And then second, lead by example. You can't just, and this is true with a boss at your workplace. Don't just sit there and lord it over people and do this and do that and you're going to get their respect. No, you have to do it yourself. Lead by example. That's what a real father does, and the kids will follow. Be forgiving. As Jesus said, forgive others as your heavenly Father forgives you. And, of course, there's a price to be paid when you walk down the bad road, and I did it. You all did it as kids, and hopefully, Dad, let it be known, and it hurt physically and emotionally, that you don't do that. You don't embarrass him and the family. Don't act like that. Be encouraging, and but at the same time provide discipline. And when I say discipline, don't be afraid to raise your hand to your kids. Now, when they get to be teenagers, those days are over. One of my sisters complained to me once when I swatted one of our kids, I'm sure it was the son, on the bottom when he was like 4 years old. Oh, he's too young to do that. That's horrible. That's abuse. I said, well, when do you start? Well, she didn't have an answer to that. If you wait, you're going to wait too long, and it's your opportunity is gone. If you have to, and we all have to, you need to physically discipline your kids when they're young. That way they know. If you just let them run roughshod over you, that's never going to stop. Be encouraging. Let your kids know that you're behind them, you're in their corner, and you want them to do well. Encourage them and praise them. That is, let them know when you're happy. My dad, whenever we did something good, he wouldn't say, "Oh, that's amazing. I'm so impressed. You're a great kid." No, he wouldn't do that. He said, "That's what I expected." And he'd smile at you, and you're like, "Yeah, I like that." He not only approves of what I'm doing, that's what he doesn't demand so much, but he expects that, and that encourages you to continue doing well. Being a spiritual example is very important as well. My dad was his Catholic Christian faith was very strong, and that provided a great example for all of us kids. Also, respect. I guess I said that before. Respect isn't something that you just deserve. You have to respect me. No, you earn it. Not just, as a dad, but as an employer, as a friend. You don't just, respect is not a free thing you just deserve. No, you don't. You earn it. And you have to earn it as a father. Of course, you have to provide for your family. Put a roof over their heads, make money, have a good job, and put food on the table. That's one of the most important things to being a good father. Also, teaching your children. And that starts from day one. Now, when I say teaching, especially as they get older into teen years, they're going to want to argue with you, and they're not going to agree with what you say. Well, you can't, see, there's somebody who wants to argue with me right there. Don't argue with them. That's not going to do you any good. What you do is you plant the seed in their head, and they'll think about it in the days, weeks, months to come. And that's what I mean by, educating your children. Plant the seed, plant the idea, plant the facts in their head, and they'll run with it. They're smart kids. They're your kids. They're smart, right? Yeah. And last but not least, marriage. And again, this is the one of the big, maybe the biggest problem in our society today is there's no dad in the house. And I'm going to give you some stats that will prove that here in a second. Be there. Stay in the house. Stay married. You're going to have problems. That's life, man. You're going to have problems with your kids, with your job, with your health, with your marriage. And your kids see that. And what are they going to see? They're going to see you bailing out, just leaving the house. Are they going to see you beating your wife? Are they going to see you resorting to alcohol or drugs? You know, they see you as a human being, not as some deity that's all perfect. No, you're a human being, and they'll learn from that. But stay in the house. If you're married and you fight with the wife, and you will, as a husband, stick through it. You know, weather the storm, and that makes you not just a good dad, but a better husband. Okay, here's some stats. I'm going to finish with this, you guys. What are the downfalls of a family without a father in the house? And the examples, the stats are myriad in favor of fatherhood. Okay, 63% of youths who commit suicide did not have a dad in the house. 63%. 71% of high school dropouts, no father in the house. 75% of those adolescents in chemical abuse facilities had no dad in the house. 85% of youths in prison, no father in the house. He had a kid and he bailed. And finally, 90%, we see this, it's getting worse and worse in the United States. 90% of those homeless people that you see had no father in the house. And one last thought, I learned this not long ago with daughters. Why do we see those marching, those people who are not stable emotionally, complaining, everything's bad among women, young women? Why is that? Why is the majority of those people in those marches, in those protests, and maybe even the riots, why are they, vast majority of them, why are they women, young women? I'll tell you, no dad. Yeah, it's true. When you as a young lady grow up with no father in the house, no example of what a man should be, then you go to high school where the majority of the teachers, look it up, the majority of them are women. So there's no example. The only one is probably the football coach, but besides that, how many? That's there are no real examples of a man that a young lady sees in high school. Then they're an adult, they go to college, okay? And what do they see? The first real man that they're exposed to and see as an example, college professors. Now, I, for the most part, respect, come on now, let's not fight here. You and I both know a lot of those college professors, they're just sowing the seed of doubt and anxiety and fear and complaining and everything's bad. And so that's what a young lady is exposed to, a young lady who is not in a home as a child with a father, with a dad, okay? Let's end with this, you guys. It's easy to be a father. Hey, man, you're just playing around. You're having fun with that beautiful woman, right? And then you leave and she gets pregnant. She has a child. Okay, you're a father. You're not there. But if you stay there, you're a dad. There's a big difference. Again, I'm not a perfect dad. I try to be. I think I have a great relationship with my kids. They're great kids. Be there and love them, okay? And that's really the two important things that count when it comes to being a dad. I lost my dad here a couple weeks ago. Dad, I'll miss you forever. You set a great example, and I trust that you're in God's loving hands, and you're living with him in eternity, and hopefully we'll all see you and each other in heaven as our day is coming. We all have our date written, and we're all going to face that day, and hopefully we'll leave a legacy as men, as dads, somebody who did what we were supposed to do, lived through the tough times and the good times, and set a great example. And that's it for this edition of Coffee with a Goose. Thanks so much for watching. And folks, let me know what you think. I know you all have comments on fatherhood, and you agree or disagree. I want to know what you think. And we'll talk to you again soon. Take care.